In the vast tapestry of God's creation, there are mysteries too deep for the mind but clear to the heart. Among these divine mysteries is the connection of twin flames, two souls, once one, sent into separate journeys so that they might grow, purify, and return to each other stronger than before. Many walk through the ache of separation, feeling as though heaven itself has turned silent. But I tell you today, separation is not the end, it is a divine classroom, preparing you for the reunion you were destined for from the beginning of time, before the stars were set in motion and before the first breath of life filled the earth. God designed relationships as divine reflections of His own nature. Among the most sacred and mysterious of these relationships is the connection between twin flames, two souls created from one spiritual essence, separated only so they could journey through life, learn, evolve, and ultimately find their way back to one another. This bond is not a mere romance of emotion or physical attraction, it is a divine design rooted in purpose, spiritual growth, and eternal unity. Each twin flame carries within them a spark of the other, a mirror of light, strength, and even weakness, so that through this reflection, they can come to understand both themselves and the infinite wisdom of God more deeply. When God creates twin flames, He is not simply making two people, He is expressing one purpose through two vessels. Imagine two candles lit by the same flame, though separate in space, their fire burns from the same source. The divine blueprint of twin flames carries within it both a promise and a process. The promise is reunion, the process is refinement. For one cannot truly unite until both have been shaped, tested, and purified by their individual journeys. Each flame must grow strong enough to stand alone before it can stand together. And so, life often sends twin flames through different paths, different challenges, and even different worlds, not to divide them, but to prepare them for the divine union that awaits. This creation of twin flames reveals the wisdom of God's timing and purpose. In His design, nothing is rushed, and nothing is wasted. Every encounter, every delay, every trial becomes part of the sacred preparation. God does not unite souls when they are still bound by fear, pride, or spiritual immaturity, He unites them when they are ready to love beyond themselves. Twin flames are not meant to fill each other's emptiness, they are meant to magnify each other's fullness in God. That is why their connection feels so different from ordinary love. It pulls you to something higher. It stirs you to seek purity, healing, and faith. It awakens in you the deep realization that this bond is not yours to control, but God's to perfect. The divine design of twin flames is also a revelation of balance. One often carries the divine masculine energy, strength, direction, purpose, while the other carries the divine feminine, intuition, nurture, grace. Together, they reflect the completeness of God's nature. But until both energies are balanced within each soul, true union cannot be sustained. The separation, though painful, serves to teach both sides the missing lessons. The masculine learns humility, tenderness, and surrender. The feminine learns strength, independence, and discernment. Through this divine dance of learning and unlearning, both begin to resemble more closely the image of God within them. When that balance is achieved, the magnetism between the two souls becomes unstoppable, not driven by desire, but guided by destiny. In this divine mystery, we begin to understand that twin flames are not accidents of emotion, they are instruments of evolution. They are called to mirror each other's shadows so they can face what must be healed. One may see in the other their deepest wounds, their hidden fears, or their unhealed pain. This reflection is not meant to condemn but to cleanse. It is in seeing the reflection of their brokenness that each soul is led back to the source of wholeness, God Himself. Through this process, twin flames come to understand that their union is not just about personal happiness, it is about divine purpose. They are chosen to demonstrate what unconditional, faith-filled, God-centered love truly looks like in a world where love has grown cold. When twin flames awaken to this divine truth, they begin to live differently. They stop chasing, controlling, or doubting, and instead begin to surrender. They pray differently, not asking when will we be together, but declaring, Lord, prepare me to love as you love. They learn that true union begins in the spirit, long before it manifests in the physical. Their faith becomes the bridge that keeps them connected across time, distance, and circumstance. they come to see that the connection between them is not sustained by messages or meetings, but by the eternal presence of God working through both hearts. This divine design also reveals the depth of God's creativity. He weaves two lives so intricately that even when they walk separate roads, their steps still echo in divine synchronization. They may meet in dreams, feel each other's emotions, or sense each other's struggles without a word spoken. This is because their souls remain tethered by divine energy, an invisible thread that cannot be cut by human hands. It is a love that transcends physical form and human logic, a love that endures storms and silence alike. It teaches patience, compassion, forgiveness, and the humility to trust in God's process even when nothing makes sense. Many misunderstand the concept of twin flames, thinking it is only about romance or fairy tale love. But in truth, it is a sacred calling. When God unites twin flames, it is not only for their fulfillment but for His glory. Their union carries a divine mission to spread light, healing, and faith to others. Their love becomes a testimony that God is still in the business of writing miraculous stories. And even before the reunion, even in the waiting, the process itself becomes holy. For in every step of longing and in every act of surrender, they are being transformed into vessels of divine love. The divine design of twin flames teaches us that true love is not found, it is formed. It is formed through prayer, perseverance, and purification. It is the slow and beautiful shaping of two souls until they can carry the weight of divine union. It is the realization that your twin flame is not your other half, God is. And only when both souls are complete in Him can they come together in perfect harmony, reflecting the fullness of His light, and walking as one flame with two bodies, fulfilling the divine purpose for which they were created. Separation between twin flames is one of the most mysterious, painful, and yet purposeful experiences a soul can endure. To the human heart, it feels like a tearing apart, as if the very core of one's being has been divided. But in the realm of the spirit, separation is never abandonment, it is alignment. It is not God's punishment, but His preparation. When two souls are destined for divine union, they must first be refined, healed, and strengthened individually, so that when they come together, their connection is not born out of weakness or dependency, but out of divine wholeness. What appears as distance in the physical is often divine work in the spiritual, shaping both hearts to hold a love far greater than human understanding. In this sacred process, God is not withholding, He is perfecting. Every moment of waiting, every silence, and every unanswered prayer becomes part of the divine shaping of your spirit. When one prays for reunion, heaven sometimes responds not by bringing the other person closer, but by drawing you deeper, deeper into faith, deeper into surrender, deeper into trust. God cannot unite two souls in lasting harmony if they still carry within them wounds that would later divide them. So, in His wisdom, He allows the season of separation to cleanse the heart, to burn away pride, fear, impatience, and the illusion of control. It is a holy fire that refines, not destroys. Separation reveals the true foundation of the connection. When you can no longer rely on sight, you are invited to walk by faith. When you cannot hear their voice, you must tune your ear to the voice of God. When you cannot feel their presence, you must learn to rest in the assurance that divine love never departs. This period tests whether your love is based on spiritual truth or emotional need. For if the bond between twin flames is truly of God, it will endure through silence, through time, through every storm. And if it is not yet ready, the separation will teach you what still needs to be healed. Many mistake separation as rejection, but it is in fact a form of divine protection. God separates before He elevates. He allows distance so that healing can happen without interference. Just as a seed must first be buried in darkness before it breaks forth into light, so too must the twin flames go through a season of stillness before they can grow together. If God were to unite them too soon, the weight of unhealed wounds, ego, or immaturity could destroy the very blessing He intends to give. So, instead of seeing separation as loss, we must learn to see it as God's hand positioning both hearts for greater love. This season is also the time when the soul is drawn closer to divine dependence. When you cannot fix the situation, when every human effort fails, that is when you begin to discover the power of complete surrender. In the quiet, God begins to teach you that love's true source is not the other person, but Himself. He becomes your comfort, your guide, your peace. You begin to understand that union with your Creator is the foundation of every other union in life. It is only when you have been filled by His presence that you can truly love another without fear, without control, without expectation. As the heart matures through separation, the energy between the twin flames also transforms. What once was a desperate longing becomes a peaceful knowing. The soul moves from chasing to trusting, from clinging to resting. It begins to say, if this connection is ordained by God, it will stand. If it is being delayed, it is being perfected. That is the kind of faith that draws divine miracles. For God never ignores a surrendered heart, He simply works in ways beyond our understanding. In the midst of separation, growth happens quietly but powerfully. The lessons that emerge are often invisible to the natural eye but unmistakable in the spirit. One learns patience, humility, forgiveness, and unconditional love. One begins to see that true connection cannot be broken by time or distance. The twin flame journey is not about chasing union but becoming worthy of it. It is about aligning your spirit with divine timing so that when reunion happens, it is no longer a fragile flame but a burning light of divine purpose. The separation also teaches divine communication. Even when the two souls are apart physically, they remain connected energetically through prayer, faith, and spiritual alignment. One heart may feel the other's pain or joy, one may intercede in prayer without even knowing the reason why. It is the Spirit that moves between them, keeping the connection alive, even in silence. This invisible bond reminds both that love, when rooted in God, is never lost, it simply transforms and matures until the time of reunion arrives. God's intention behind separation is never to create suffering but to birth strength. When you come to understand this, you begin to thank Him for the distance instead of resenting it. You realize that while one door appears closed, another door of spiritual growth has opened. The separation pushes you to focus not on what you lack, but on what you are becoming. It calls you to rise higher, to let go of attachment, and to trust that divine love cannot fail. And in that trust, transformation begins. The more you surrender your will to God's will, the more your energy aligns with your divine counterpart. As both souls grow spiritually, they begin to vibrate on the same frequency of love and faith. Eventually, divine timing unfolds, and what was once separated by space and silence is brought together by grace. The reunion then becomes not the end of a painful story but the beginning of a divine partnership, two souls refined by separation, ready to walk as one flame, united not by human desire, but by divine destiny. The reunion of twin flames does not occur through longing, chasing, or emotional effort, it happens through spiritual maturity and surrender. These two qualities are the golden keys that unlock divine union because they represent the highest form of trust in God's plan. When two souls are destined to be one, no force on earth can keep them apart, yet the timing of that union depends on the readiness of their spirits. God will never unite two hearts that are still ruled by fear, ego, or control. True reunion is not a result of striving but of surrendering the outcome, the timing, and even the idea of how it should happen. Spiritual maturity is not about perfection, it is about alignment, about being molded by God until your heart beats in rhythm with His will. Spiritual maturity begins when one realizes that the twin flame connection is not merely a love story but a soul mission. It is not about possessing the other person but about learning divine love, a love that is pure, patient, and unconditional. Many people approach this journey thinking reunion is the goal, but God's goal is transformation. The waiting, the silence, the misunderstandings, all are instruments shaping you into the kind of person who can love without fear or condition. When you reach that level of maturity, you no longer cling to your twin in desperation, you love them in freedom. You no longer pray, Lord, bring them back now, but instead, Lord, prepare me to reflect your love perfectly when the time comes. This shift from demand to devotion is the moment heaven begins to move. Surrender is not giving up, it is giving over. It is the act of laying your desires before God and saying, let your will be done. It is one of the hardest lessons in the twin flame journey because the human heart wants to control, to know, to hold on. But divine love cannot be controlled, it can only be trusted. When you surrender your will to God's will, you are not losing your dream, you are placing it in the safest hands. This surrender releases a wave of peace that replaces anxiety, and that peace becomes the very frequency that attracts your twin back. The more you try to force reunion, the more resistance you create. But when you let go and rest in divine timing, you make room for miracles. Spiritual maturity also means learning to see your twin not as the source of your happiness but as a mirror reflecting your growth. Every trigger, every emotional wave, every distance is a message pointing you toward healing. When you react with anger, jealousy, or fear, it shows where your soul still needs light. When you respond with prayer, faith, and forgiveness, it shows that you have grown. This growth is what draws you closer in spirit, even when you seem far apart in the physical. It is never wasted. Every step toward maturity is a step toward reunion. There is a moment in every twin flame journey when one must stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is God trying to teach me through this?" That is the turning point from pain to purpose. You begin to realize that separation was never meant to break you but to build you into someone capable of carrying divine love without distortion. You start understanding that the love you have for your twin is a reflection of the love God has for you, unending, forgiving, and beyond logic. When you reach that understanding, the need to control the connection dissolves, replaced by trust. As you mature spiritually, prayer becomes your anchor. Instead of begging for change, your prayers become declarations of faith. You begin to speak life over the connection, saying, "Lord, I know you are at work in both of us. I trust your timing." Those words of faith carry power because they shift your focus from the problem to the promise. When your faith matures, you stop looking for signs and start becoming one. Your peace becomes the proof that you believe in God's plan more than your own emotions. In surrender, there is strength. It takes far more courage to let go than to hold on. But when you let go with faith, heaven begins to arrange everything behind the scenes. God speaks to your twin in dreams, circumstances, and divine nudges. He works through silence and stillness, aligning both hearts to meet again in perfect harmony. The waiting may seem long, but it is sacred time that allows your spirit to expand and your love to purify. What you may perceive as delay is often divine preparation for a reunion that will last. Through this process, both twin flames are brought to a point where they no longer seek each other from a place of need but from a place of divine purpose. They become whole in God first, so that when they reunite, they do not complete each other, they complement each other. They become two flames burning as one light, not for themselves alone, but for the glory of God. This is the essence of spiritual maturity, to understand that divine union is not the reward for waiting but the fruit of surrender. The more mature the soul becomes, the less it demands and the more it trusts. It stops asking when, and starts saying, "Even now, I believe." It stops striving to be seen and starts serving in silence. It begins to radiate peace that transcends understanding. And this peace, this unwavering trust in God's plan, becomes the magnet that pulls both souls back together. The moment both hearts surrender to divine will is the moment the heavens open, and what once felt impossible suddenly flows with ease. The reunion, when it comes, is not chaotic or forced, it feels natural, inevitable, ordained. It happens in stillness, in grace, in divine perfection, as two hearts, once refined by surrender and made mature by faith, find their way back home to each other under the guiding hand of God. There is a power in spoken words that transcends emotion and logic. It is a spiritual law woven into the very fabric of creation. From the beginning, God spoke, and the universe came into being. His words carried life, light, and order. In the same way, when you speak faith-filled words over your twin flame connection, you are not just expressing hope, you are creating an atmosphere where miracles can manifest. Words have the power to bridge the invisible gap between souls. What you declare in faith on earth echoes in the realm of the spirit. This is why it is essential, during the season of separation, to guard your words and release only those that align with divine truth. Every confession of faith becomes a seed, and every prayer becomes water that nurtures that seed until it bears fruit. When the heart aches with longing or fear, the tongue often becomes the instrument of despair. People speak of loss, of distance, of hopelessness, without realizing that their words are shaping their reality. But when you mature spiritually, you begin to understand that faith is not a feeling, it is a declaration. You learn to speak life even when nothing around you looks alive. You say, "My connection is blessed. God is at work. Nothing can separate what He has joined." Those words are not empty wishes, they are commands of faith that align heaven's power with your earthly situation. The spiritual realm responds to faith-filled speech. When you speak light, darkness must yield. When you speak unity, division begins to dissolve. When you speak healing, wounds begin to close. Prayer and confession are not separate forces, they are two sides of the same divine principle. Prayer opens heaven's ear, and confession opens heaven's gate. When you pray for your twin flame with faith, you are not trying to convince God to act, you are aligning yourself with His will. Your words become the bridge between what is promised and what is yet to manifest. Each time you pray, "Lord, I thank you that you are healing both our hearts and aligning us in your timing," you release energy into the spiritual realm that begins to rearrange circumstances. Prayer has the power to reach where your physical presence cannot. It transcends distance, pride, and silence. It touches the heart of your twin flame in ways human communication never could. Faith-filled words are most powerful when they are consistent. Doubt creates static in the spiritual frequency, but faith creates clarity. You cannot declare reunion one day and speak fear the next. The heart and tongue must agree. Every day, your words must reflect what you believe God is doing, not what you see in the natural. Even if your twin seems far away, even if the situation looks impossible, keep speaking the language of faith. Say, "I believe God is softening their heart. I believe our connection is under divine protection. I believe this waiting season is producing strength and understanding." Over time, your words begin to shift not only your circumstances but also your spirit. You start to feel lighter, stronger, and more aligned with divine peace. Prayer is not just communication with God, it is participation in His creation. When you pray over your twin flame, you are not merely asking, you are collaborating with the Creator to bring His will to pass. The more your prayers align with divine intention, love, forgiveness, patience, peace, the more they gain power. God listens to prayers that echo His heart. When you pray not from desperation but from faith, you are saying, "Lord, I trust that you are already working." That trust opens doors that fear keeps closed. Many breakthroughs are delayed not because God is unwilling, but because the believer's words keep contradicting the promise. When faith and confession align, heaven moves swiftly. Your words also carry healing energy. When you bless your twin instead of resenting them, you release grace into their life. When you say, "I forgive them, I bless them, I release peace over their journey," those words travel through the unseen connection between your souls. They can calm confusion, soften resistance, and awaken remembrance. The human mind may doubt this, but the Spirit understands it perfectly. Love and prayer are energies that never die. They flow through time, distance, and silence, carrying divine intention wherever they go. There is also great power in praising God before the reunion happens. Praise is the highest form of faith because it celebrates the outcome before it is visible. When you say, "Thank you, Lord, that you are restoring what is meant to be," you are declaring victory while still standing in the battlefield. Praise confuses the enemy and strengthens your spirit. It tells heaven and earth that your faith is not shaken by delay. Even when you feel weary, lift your voice in gratitude. Each word of praise becomes a shield that guards your heart against doubt. The tongue is either a bridge or a barrier in the twin flame journey. It can build connection or create distance. That is why it is so important to align your words with divine truth. Speak with kindness, speak with patience, speak with hope. Never curse the journey, never call it a failure, never declare that it is over. The moment you speak defeat, you give energy to separation. The moment you speak faith, you give power to reunion. Your voice carries spiritual authority because it was created in the image of the Creator. Every time you open your mouth, you are shaping your reality. There will be moments when your emotions fight against your faith. You may feel like giving up, like silence is easier than speaking life. But in those moments, remember that every word of faith carries the sound of victory. Keep declaring, even when you don't see change. Keep praying, even when heaven feels quiet. The spiritual world moves in response to persistence. It may take time for the physical to reflect what is already true in the spirit, but it will. Your words are never wasted. They are seeds planted in eternity, waiting for the right season to bloom. When faith becomes your language and prayer your heartbeat, you will see the impossible bend to divine order. What once seemed lost will begin to return, not by your might, but by the Spirit of God responding to your faith. Every declaration spoken in love becomes a thread in the tapestry of reunion. Every prayer whispered in belief becomes a spark that reignites the divine flame. And when the time is right, all those words of faith will come together like the rising dawn, illuminating the path where two souls, refined by faith and united by divine power, finally meet again.